Paramount Plus has been hiding some of the best television of the last decade, and most people have no idea. Limited series, tight stories, no filler. Just 10, 8, sometimes 6 episodes that hit harder than most films. History you never learned in school, crimes that rewrote families, and love stories that refused to die. Today, we count down the 10 most addictive miniseries the platform has to offer, and trust me, this list will surprise you. But before we begin, it would mean a lot if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your kind support. 10. The Happy Face Killer. Imagine finding out, in the most ordinary moment of your life, that the person you trusted most in the world is responsible for something unimaginable. Melissa is 15 years old when her reality collapses. Not slowly all at once. Her father, a man she ate breakfast with, laughed with, believed in completely, turns out to be one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. The press had a name for him. A terrible, almost absurd name. And now that name belongs to her family. What makes this series unlike almost anything else in the true crime genre is its choice of perspective. The killer is not the story. His daughter is. And that decision changes everything. Because this is not about understanding a monster. It is about watching a young woman try to figure out who she is when half of her identity has just been revealed as a lie. Annalee Ashford carries the series with extraordinary restraint, never reaching for easy emotion when quiet devastation will do. The result is a story about inheritance, not of money or property, but of shame, confusion, and the long, painful work of becoming someone separate from your worst origins. 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. And every point is earned. 9. George and Tammy. Some people make beautiful music together and beautiful chaos everywhere else. George Jones and Tammy Wynette were the most celebrated couple in country music history. They were also, by almost every account, a slow-motion disaster. Addiction, violence, separations and reunions that followed no logic, except the kind that defies logic entirely. And through all of it, music. Extraordinary, heartbreaking, impossible to forget music. This series does not look away from any of it. It does not clean up the story or sand down the edges. It sits inside a relationship that was genuinely great and genuinely terrible, and it asks the viewer to hold both of those things at once. What elevates it beyond a conventional biography is one remarkable creative decision. Jessica Chastain and Michael Shannon recorded every single song themselves. No dubbing, no vocal stand-ins. They learned the music from scratch, and something real and unguarded comes through in every scene where they perform together a vulnerability that no technical solution could have manufactured. 5 Emmy nominations followed, and anyone who watches this will understand exactly why. This is not a story about country music. It is a story about 2 people who could not save each other, and could not leave each other, and made something eternal out of that impossible place. 8. Sexy Beast. Before the legend, there was the beginning, and the beginning is just as dangerous. The south of Spain in the early 90s. The sun is relentless, the money is dirty, and everything that looks like a holiday is a cover for something else entirely. Gal Dove is a thief trying to become a ghost, to disappear into a quieter life, away from the world that made him. It is a reasonable ambition. The problem is the world he is trying to leave. Don Logan is already becoming what he will one day be. Not yet fully formed, but moving in that direction, with the quiet certainty of something that cannot be stopped. Every scene between them carries a tension that does not release, because the series understands that real danger does not announce itself. It simply arrives. Most origin stories exist to explain what audiences already know. This one refuses that obligation. It builds its own world, its own atmosphere, its own reasons to keep watching, and delivers a crime thriller that stands completely alone, regardless of what came before it. 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. A prequel that earns the name. 7. The Comey Rule. There is a specific kind of tension that comes from watching history when you already know how it ends, and realizing you never fully understood it. James Comey led the Federal Bureau of Investigation through one of the most turbulent periods in modern American political history. He was at the center of decisions that shaped an election, a presidency, and the credibility of institutions that millions of people had trusted for decades. And then, one afternoon, he was fired. He found out by watching television. This two-part series reconstructs those years with meticulous detail. Jeff Daniels disappears into Comey methodical, convinced of his own integrity, occasionally blind to what that conviction costs the people around him. Brendan Gleeson as the 45th president is unsettling precisely because the portrayal never tips into parody. It stays just close enough to plausible to be genuinely uncomfortable. Released weeks before the 2020 election, the timing made it feel almost unbearably immediate, but the craft underneath holds completely on its own terms. This is a story about what happens when one person believes the rules still apply and another has already decided they never did. Political drama at its most unsparing, and one of the most important limited series of its era. 6. The Act. What if the person responsible for keeping you safe was the very source of the danger? From the outside, everything looked like devotion. A mother who never left her daughter's side. A family that faced unimaginable medical challenges with grace and quiet courage. Neighbors who donated. Strangers who helped. A story that seemed, at every surface level, to be about love. It was not. What Gypsy Rose Blanchard endured at the hands of her own mother is one of the most disturbing cases in the documented history of medical abuse. And this series tells that story without the comfortable distance of true crime sensationalism. It places the viewer inside the relationship, inside the confusion, the manipulation, the slow suffocation of a person who was never allowed to know what was real. Patricia Arquette won the Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress for her portrayal. It is a performance that refuses simple answers, because the most frightening thing about this story is not that it is monstrous. It is that it is comprehensible. That is what makes it impossible to look away from. 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a series that will stay with you long after it ends. 5. Waco. 51 days. 76 people. And a chain of decisions that nobody, on any side, can fully defend. In the spring of 1993, federal agents surrounded a compound in rural Texas. Inside were hundreds of men, women, and children who followed a man named David Koresh, a leader who claimed divine authority and exercised something far more complicated than simple manipulation. What followed became one of the most analyzed and contested events in recent American history. What this series does exceptionally well is refuse the easy version. Koresh is not just a villain. He is shown as someone genuinely capable of inspiring devotion, and that is far more disturbing than a monster would be. The federal agents are not heroes or villains either. They are people operating under institutional pressure, following orders, making the kinds of errors that seem obvious only afterward. Taylor Kitsch gives the performance of his career magnetic and deeply unsettling in equal measure. Michael Shannon anchors the other side as a negotiator who believed in conversation until conversation was no longer an option. This is not comfortable television. It asks difficult questions about belief, authority, and the violence that lives inside certainty. And it does not offer clean answers because the real story never had any. 4. Base Reeves. History remembers who it chooses to remember, and for too long, it chose to forget this name. Base Reeves was born into slavery. He survived a war. He built a life in one of the most dangerous and lawless territories in North America. And he became one of the most effective lawmen the American West ever produced, capturing thousands of fugitives across decades of service in conditions that would have broken most people. Some historians believe he may have been the original inspiration for the Lone Ranger. The real story is more interesting than the legend. David Oyelowo brings an immense, quiet authority to the role of a man who enforced laws that had once been used against him in a world that was never designed to include him. With a moral seriousness, the series never reduces to simple heroism. There is no triumphant arc here. There is only a man doing an extraordinary job in an impossible situation, one day at a time. The cinematography is breathtaking. The silence earns its weight, and the story it tells is one that American history owed far better than the decades of erasure it received. Created within Taylor Sheridan's Frontier universe, and the best argument that universe has produced for why these stories matter. 3. Escape at Dannemora. A true prison break story so strange, so reckless, and so deeply human that if it had been invented, nobody would have believed it. In the summer of 2015, 2 convicted murderers walked out of the Clinton Correctional Facility in upstate New York, a maximum security prison that had never seen an escape in its entire history. But this is not really a story about the escape. It is a story about what made it possible. About a woman who worked inside those walls and found herself caught between 2 very different men, both of whom saw in her something they desperately needed. And about how a plan that should have been impossible got built, piece by piece, inside one of the most controlled environments on Earth. Ben Stiller directs every episode with a patience and precision that mirrors the story itself. Slow, deliberate, suffocating in the best possible way. Benicio del Toro disappears completely into a man who is simultaneously dangerous and pitiable. Patricia Arquette received an Emmy for her portrayal of a woman who is impossible to fully condemn and impossible to fully excuse. Paul Dano is quietly devastating in a role that demands almost everything. Nominated for 12 Emmys, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a series that proves the best prison dramas are never really about escaping a building. They are about escaping yourself. 2. The Offer. Everyone knows the film. Almost nobody knows what it took to make it exist. The Godfather came within inches of never happening. The studio thought the story was too slow, too long, too ethnic, and too expensive. The director they chose had a reputation for commercial failure. The actor they needed for the lead was considered finished in Hollywood. The budget was impossibly thin for what Coppola was determined to create. And then there was the other problem. The real mafia had opinions about the project and the means to express them. This series follows producer Albert S. Ruddy through every obstacle, compromise, and near collapse that stood between an idea and what became one of the most important films in cinema history. Miles Teller anchors the story with a performance of persistent, unglamorous competence. A man who was very good at his job in a situation where being good was nowhere near enough. The series became the most watched launch in Paramount Plus history at the time of its release. It has the structure of a thriller, the warmth of a love letter to filmmaking, and the particular pleasure of a story where you already know the ending and find yourself on the edge of your seat anyway. A must-watch for anyone who has ever loved a film and wondered what it cost. 1. Fellow Travelers. Some stories take 30 years to tell. Not because they are complicated, but because the world they unfold in keeps trying to end them. Washington, 1953. The McCarthy era is at its peak. 2 men meet in a city that would destroy them if it knew what they were. What begins between them is not a love story that follows a clean arc. It is a love story that survives at enormous cost, across 3 decades, through some of the most defining and devastating moments in recent American history. The series moves carefully through each era. It inhabits the government purges of the 1950s, Vietnam, and the AIDS crisis of the 1980s, treating history not as backdrop but as active force, reshaping its characters every time they manage to find each other again. Each period is rendered with extraordinary detail and emotional precision. Matt Bomer and Jonathan Bailey carry this across 30 years, with a chemistry so specific and so painful that the quietest scenes between them are often the hardest to watch. There is no performance here, just 2 people in a situation that keeps asking more of them than anyone should have to give. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, the highest-rated series in the entire Paramount Plus catalog. Not because it is perfect, but because it is true, in every way that matters, about love, fear, and the cost of a world that refused to let people simply exist. And that is our top 10. 10 series that prove Paramount Plus has been quietly building one of the most serious catalogs in streaming television, story by story, episode by episode, without needing to be the loudest platform in the room. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you left your like, subscribed to the channel, and activated the bell so you never miss a new upload. It takes 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps this content reach more people. Drop a comment below telling me which of these series you are watching first. I read every single one. See you in the next video.